Good evening, everyone, and welcome. Welcome on this sunny Tuesday. The weather certainly did not follow what the weatherman said, so maybe you're watching this on replay because you're outside enjoying this evening. But if you are joining us live, hello, it is Sherry and Darlene. And you know what? This is the last Tuesday of May, and Father's Day is just a couple of weeks away. And that always makes us think about how do you make masculine projects? I know it's something that we get asked for. Darlene, would you say it's probably one of our most frequent questions that we get from people is how to make masculine cards, how to do things a little bit differently for men versus women?
Yes, for sure.
Yeah.
We get a lot of those questions saying, okay, how do I make a masculine card, or how can I turn something to make it more manly?
And so that is what Darlene has in store for us tonight. Debbie says that they are having thunderstorms in Niagara, so maybe we've got thunderstorms coming our way. But until then, and while the signal holds clear, Darlene, I'm just going to hand the camera over to you and take it away. Folks, as you're watching, if you have questions, please do pop them in the comments, whether you're watching on YouTube or on Facebook, and I will make sure that Darlene gets those questions and can answer them on the spot. So, Darlene, show us what you've got in store for us tonight.
Thanks so much, Sherry. So welcome everyone to our last Tuesday of a Learning Live. I got to play with some of the new products that came into our store. If you haven't checked out our online store, we got a whole bunch of different items from Crafter's Companion. One of them being this Ayrshire plaid stencil. We do have two different stencils. Tonight I will be mainly using the Ayrshire one, and I will show you that a little bit later. But we did get a second plaid stencil called the Orkney. They are, as I watch Sarah Davies from Crafter's Companion, they are Scottish plaid names. So some of these names you'll probably recognize or heard of. Orkney is a different kind of plaid, and I think I'm going to play with that a little bit later on, but let's start with this one. What I like about this stencil is that I know it's hard to see on the screen. It is a big stencil. So this stencil, the square itself is 9.5 by 9.5, but the actual pattern, so the actual pattern part, when I measured it earlier today, it's about 7.5, just a tad smaller than 7.5 squared, but it makes a pretty plaid. So this one's called the Ayrshire. They do have a spelling mistake there, so you could always rub it with rubbing alcohol and rewrite it with a Sharpie marker. What I like about this stencil is that they've numbered it, and they actually wrote this way up on each of the stencil. So this is stencil 1, stencil 2, stencil 3. It's all labeled with the name of the plaid, the number of the stencil, as well as this way up. So that way, when you are stenciling these plaids, that as long as you have this way up, then you are good to go. Another thing to notice, I know it's really hard to see on my screen. I don't have something dark. Hold on, give me a second. Let me get a dark colored cardstock. That way we can see it. I think this red will pop up nicely. Is that they have registration marks. So there is 4 little circles, 2 at the top, 2 at the bottom. And these are basically to help you line up all 3 stencils. And as I show you tonight, you will see how I line them up. Another way you can use these stencils if you don't want to put the registration marks is that you can, if you have the Memory Misty, which is the big scrapbook 12 by 12 Misty, or anything with a straight edge, like a straight right angle edge, you can nestle this, the stencil right to the edge. As long as it's consistent, you'll be able to do the stencil layers. So let's show you, before we start making one, this is what this plaid looks like. So because tonight I am looking at masculine cards, I picked a variety of different colors to work with. And the first one I played with, I used Uncharted Mariner, Fired Brick, and Rusty Hinge. And this was my prototype. And if you have noticed, it's a little bit fuzzy. So I will tell you what I've done to improve that fuzziness and stuff like that as we go along. So I tried a variety of colors, and I will show you some of the colors I picked out. This one being Speckled Egg, Antique Linen, and Uncharted Mariner. It doesn't matter what ink pads you are using. Tonight I am using the Distress Oxides. I just like using them, and I have a variety of colors. So I already put little piles of colors that I think would work. Not to say they may not work color-wise. Any paper will work. You could certainly cut it down to 9.5 by 9.5. I'm just taking my Nina 8.5 by 11 cardstock, and I am just going to do it this way. So one thing I do recommend, if you don't have a Memory Misty or the waffle flower mat, like the grip mats where you can put your stencil on, best thing is either your best ever tape. So I'm using the Spellbinders one. Any low tack tape is what you want to hold it down. So I am just putting it on my hand just to make it even less tacky. And because I have my paper on our PCW desk mat, I did one of these little loop ones. I'm going to put it behind just to help it stay steady on my desk mat. I am using
Darlene?
yes?
Sorry, before you go on, Diane had a question. Can you use painter's tape to mark it? I'm not 100% sure what she's asking for, but maybe you can give us an answer.
So Diane, if you're talking painter's tape to replace the best ever tape, yes, as long as it's the green one or the blue one. I wouldn't recommend masking tape or scotch tape because they are stronger. It is going to peel your paper. For the loop at the back, you should be okay because initially you're going to glue this onto something. So that is fine. But when you start sticking the stencil down, you really want a low tack tape so when you peel it off, it doesn't rip your paper. So for me, is the best ever tape is a low tack tape, but to be sure, I like to just put it on my hands. That way it's just a little bit less tacky. And I'm just going to move this paper. And we're going to start.
To clarify, she's saying the four corners to put the dots on.
Okay. So these ones here. So if you put painter's tape, it depends on how you're doing it because you want to make sure all stencils line up. So these 4 circles here is a guide for you to be able to line up the circles for each of the stencils so your plaid will turn out correctly. So let me show you what it's used for. I think the painter's tape, if you would really have to measure and make sure you have it on the spot each time you do it. I hope that answers your question, Diane, but let me show you how these work. So because I'm using
it might become more clear once you try it out. So Diane, just take a look at what Darlene's going to do, and then if you need more clarification, we can help you out with that afterwards.
Yeah. Another thing is, as I'm seeing the comment, is that if you do use, let's say, well, I am using the PCW grid. So let's say you're using a grid mat, you could line it. So I'm just lining it up on the 2-inch mark. And then you could line up your stencil to the 2-inch mark and then tape it down. As long as it's lined up and you remember where you lined it up and you make sure, I think you should be okay. I think that's what you're asking for. So as you can see, I don't know if it's hard to see here, but I have lined up my stencil to the left-hand side of my cardstock. I find that was easier, but for sure you can work in the middle. You can work on the opposite end. For all the samples I've done, I marked it to the left-hand side. And I am using the low tack tape to tape my stencil down to the desk mat. And I am going to put one at the bottom too. With the Ayrshire stencil, it was actually easy to figure out stencil 2 and stencil 3, how it overlaps on top. But when they design this, there are 2 ways to do it. So, and I think some companies have already done the same thing, is that when you're inking, just ink those circles and you can match it up. If you don't want to ink it, you could take a pencil and you can lightly trace that circle, and that way you can erase it. But if you look over here, oh, this one doesn't have it, but here, I inked it up, and because the stencil's 9.5, my actual plaid is here, that when you cut it out, you won't see those circles. So there's a variety of ways you can do it. And if you have a MISTI, you probably don't need those registration marks too, because you can always line it up to the edges. So the first trio of colors I picked, hopefully they work out. So I based these trios. If I follow a lady called, her name is Christina Warner. She's very popular in this industry. She has come up with a lot of combos for the oxides, and you can for sure do it with the distress ink. So I went into her Pinterest and I grabbed some of her combinations that I liked as masculine cards. And one of them was prize ribbon, peacock feathers, and squeezed lemonade. So with stencil 1, I am going to lift this up just to show you. When I first initially did it, I used one of these brushes. And I found that when you were stenciling this middle part here, because of the delicateness, it kept moving, and that's why I got the fuzzies here. See how it's blurry? It's because that stencil kept moving when I was blending it in. So when I did my second one, I used the domed foamed, or you can use the if you have pouncers in your craft room, those are also very good. And you can also pixie spray it. So pixie spray is an adhesive spray. It's a low-tack adhesive spray that you can spray on the back and then stick it to your work. So that would work as well. But I just used my blending tools, and it worked for all my other samples. So I'm just using the dome one. I like the feel of this. And let's start off with peacock feathers. So I'm going to really ink up my dome brush. And the nice thing about these plaids, or if you have scrap paper, is always try to take some of that ink off, and then we will ink. So I'm going, because it's inky, I'm going to start with my stencil. And as the ink starts disappearing, I can just put a little dot on the top here so I can line it up later, or if you drew it. And I'm going to just take some of that ink and go the opposite side. So the left and right was really easy because there was nothing moving. It was more of the middle, so I kind of saved that till the end, not end, but after these 2 sides are done, I went and did the middle. So depending on how dark you want your plaids, you can. For stencil 1, I did do the same color in the middle, but because it's separated, you could always do a secondary color here. But let's start off with just one color. I'm going to ink it up a little bit. And here, instead of going in circular motions, because I don't want these little stencils to move, I actually just brushed it. So in one direction, I'm going left to right. So I keep picking up, and I'm just brushing the color in. You can also pounce the color in if you want it darker, but I found it didn't move the delicateness of those stencils. That way I didn't get those blurry marks. I found that when I was rushing, it did move a little bit, so you want to go slow. And it was only the stencil 1. The other stencils, I was fine. It was just this one here. But I do love the look. So I'm just going to pounce as well, just to get the colors darker. And I'm just rubbing it. So just to show you an idea of using a brush. So when I use the brush, when you're pushing it, it's sliding. I'm not sure if it's translating on the camera, but you end up moving those strips, the zigzags, up and down, and that's how I got the fuzzies. But using the blending dome, I was able to secure those safely, and it worked out nicely. So the nice thing about this is that you can do favorite colors, and tonight we're doing masculine, so I am doing masculine colors. But if you had a girlfriend to give it to, you know, a card for your family members, you can personalize it with their favorite colors. And you know me, I love my purple, so I did do a sample with shades of purple and a little bit of black. But so I'm just doing it depending on how dark you want it. I do like the different shades of this peacock feather. So I just want to make sure that I got all the marks and the edges here. So, and there. So some is darker and lighter. If you want it consistent, you can go over with more color, but I am happy with that. And it didn't shift. So when you are happy, I'm a saver of ink, so I'm just going to pull some of that ink down. Whoops, shouldn't have done that. If you are happy with the color you're ready, we're going to lift. I don't wipe my stencil until it's off the actual cardstock. And there you go. So I don't have those fuzzies like this one here. So that was stencil 1. For stencil 2, you want to make sure this way up, you can match your circle registration, or if you had it lined up to the left, you can do that too. So I'm just lining that up. I do need 2 more tape. Okay. So registration 2 gives it a little bit more definition. It gives you, so here is the antique linen. So it gives you the empty spaces as well as the solid blocks. So that's what we're creating now. And I picked squeezed lemonade for that. So let me get another one here. And for this one here, you can just ink it up and not worry. So I'm giving it a good shade of yellow. So I didn't wait for the inks to dry. You, just like any other project, sometimes you do want to wait for it to dry. So let's say you do a couple stencil 1s, let it dry, and then do your 2s. I found that it didn't really cause a muddy look to it. I think it's also the colors I picked was pretty good, that it didn't do the muddy look. So here is my squeezed lemonade, and I love the brightness of it, so I am going to just add a little bit more of that yellow. I just love that bright color. Okay, and then on the opposite. So I still have those middles, but I'm starting at the ends. And see how these ones, because they are not stationary, they're not moving, I can actually do circular motions. It's just that first stencil was tricky, but all the other ones was fine. Oops. My hand shifted and my paper moved. So let me just fix that. There. Nice thing with plaid is that you can't really see your whoopsies unless you look really closely. So I'm just going to fix that a little bit. And now the middle part. So I'm just inking the middle here. So trying to find combinations. You can for sure, if you have the Pink Fresh inks, you can also do the gradient look. So from light to dark, that would be cool too. You could do tone on tone. I went with bold colors and soft colors. I had fun. And I just double checking, making sure I covered all the spots. And my next color. So the next color is for your stencil 3. That gives you the dark lines. It gives you the solid lines that you want to pop to show your plaid. So I always save the darkest color from my color palette that I chose to be the last color to go on. And the nice thing is that when I was playing around with this plaid and finding colors, I actually put colors together that I would normally not do. So it was really interesting. Like Christina Warner has these 3 colors, and she used prize ribbon with the peacock feathers and the squeezed lemonade. And it's not a color, the third color I would choose, but I actually like the swatch she did. So if you're looking for combos and you're not sure, take a look at what she has. She has lots of different combinations, especially like combinations if you're looking for like sunset sunrise type. She has all those combos, so that was really nice. So that's where I drew my inspiration from for colors. And that way when you see it, then you already know, oh, you like how it looks, you'll know it turns out, or you can play with what you have at home. So I really want this color to be striking, because plaids have their, dark colors. Okay, so
Darlene, for that last stencil, could you use a paste instead of an ink?
yeah, so if you are using paste, I would suggest you use it only with stencil 3. I think paste with stencil 1 and 2 are very tricky because of the intricate holes and stuff like that, and I think you would probably not be happy washing it. So I would say stencil 3 if you're using paste, stencil 3 would be the one that you do paste on. And I think that would be cool to do paste with this, especially if it's like a metallic or a pearl on it. Because this will be nice for like, Christmas paper, or with like a hint of red and some gold. And I think, oops, right here. So are you ready for the big reveal? And then I have to clean the stencils, but let's take a look. This is the fun part, is when you get to see. Ooh, I do like the color. See, it's not a color I would pick, but I do like the brightness of it. Like I could have went darker there, but that's okay. But I do like how that prize ribbon with those 2 colors look really well. Yes, Ellen, orange and purple for sure, or purple and green. So that is the stencil. See how easy that is to whip up? So the next thing, after playing around and looking at it, I talked to Sherry and said, what happens if I use the second set stencil and mix the 2 together? So let's play. And then I will create something with what we just made, but I'm going to let it just dry a little bit, because with distress, it looks way better when it's dried up. So give me 2 seconds. I'm going to wipe this down so I don't transfer the color. The best way to clean stencils is using rubbing alcohol and a cloth, whether it's a cheesecloth or a chamois or something. Nice thing about rubbing alcohol is that it dries really fast, so you don't have to worry about having water splatters on your projects. And so what we just created, I used 3 stencils. You could for sure use 2 to create something, but I wanted to see what it would look like if I combined 2 different plaid stencil sets. So you're going to go along the ride with me. And we're going to try it out because I have not played with it. I just picked up the other stencil set. So this one's called Orkney. This one has the diagonal lines, whereas this one here, the Ayrshire, had the vertical and horizontal lines. So let's mix it up and put some diagonal lines in it. So who likes plaid? Show me in the comments if you are a fan of plaid. And if you are a scrapbooker, this plaid stencil would be awesome in it. So I'm going to play somewhere when I get home tonight and see how we can incorporate it on a layout, because it's so big that you could do like a border, a plaid border and stuff like that. So I have another Nina paper. I am going to start with, well, let's see what we have here. So I think for my diagonal line, I will use this one here. So I am going to use the Stencil 2 because it has those solid lines, and mix it in. Let's try. As I always say, it's only paper, and I work at a scrapbook store and there's lots of paper there, so can't go wrong. So let's pick another color. So that was one color. The other color choice she had, which I like as a masculine, was tumbled glass. Sorry, I wrote everything down. Faded jean and a little bit of brown, ground espresso. So let's try some of that. I do need to switch some of my domed. Don't know how this will look like, but it's all about playing and mixing it up and creating new things. So for this one here, I am going to do faded jeans. It's a dark blue. So this is stencil 1. I'm just going to put my registration marks there. And so faded jeans is a dark blue. And I'm just going to do that and do this. So I am working on an 8.5 by 11 paper. Just because then I can use multiple parts of the stencil. I did try doing the stencil on, sorry, I'm lost for words, a 4 1/4 by 5.5 panel, so a regular card size. It was a little bit more tricky. You would really have to, because it's a smaller card, you have to pick a part of the stencil that you want to use on that card. So it was a little bit trickier. It's not to say you can't do it, but it was a little bit more time consuming because I had to figure out, okay, where the stencil, remember to line it up at the right place. So I think doing the full stencil is easier. So, and then you can pick where you want to cut. And of course you can use the extras for another project. So I'm just going to make sure I'm not circular motion. Faded jeans does look like blue jeans here. So I'm just going in the same direction as the diagonal, so I'm not moving the stencil out of its place. I am going a little bit faster, so my color's not even, but that's okay. We'll just think of it as faded jeans. Well, like the name, faded jeans. There's dark parts, light parts, and so I'm just going to edge these edges a little bit darker. And okay, let me add here. I can tell where it's not dark enough. And here. Okay, so this is stencil 1 of Ayrshire. Okay. Now let's go to, ooh, that's pretty. Make sure I don't mix up. So that's stencil 1 of Ayrshire. We want stencil 2 of Ayrshire. Some lining up the registration marks. Because my paper is smaller than 9.5, I'm just using the 2 top ones. And this one here, let's use tumbled glass. So it is a lighter blue. So I do a light and a dark, but you could do, all 3 dark colors, all 2. Oh, that's an interesting combination. Told you, if I don't try her combos, I would never know what it would look like and if I like it. So here is tumbled glass. So I'm just doing the easy side first, and then I'll do the center. And the nice thing is that if you like the color, you can whip them up really easily. Like I would do maybe 3 sheets of stencil 1 first, and then move on to stencil 2, stencil 3. Oops, I did miss up there. And Christina Warner. On Pinterest, you can find all her combos. And they're really cool combos. Oops, I keep moving my paper now. Oh, because I forgot my loopy loop. Okay, let's see. And the nice thing about this one is that you can line it back up. So I'm just following and lining it back up. This one I was able to line it up even without the registration marks. So I am lining it registration, but I want to make sure that everything has not shifted. I forgot to put my loopy loop behind. So I'm using my hand to hold it all down. Making sure that you covered all the holes and the middle part. So here is tumble glass. And I'm just doing circular motions slowly on here, making sure that I cover every piece. And here. It's like magic, making our own pattern paper. Thank you, Sherry, for putting that up. Yeah. Okay. So this is stencil 2 of Ayrshire. So Ayrshire, once again, is the vertical horizontal plaid. And I am not going to use 3 of Ayrshire. I am going to switch it up and use the diagonal Orkney. Let me see if this will work so I'm ooh. Oh, I think we're going to like this. So I'm matching my circles on the top because all the circles are all the same in the 2 sets. And let's see. So I'm using stencil 2 for the single diagonal lines, but if you wanted those, really funky plaid patterns, you can for sure do this one here, there's a thick one and then some stitch marks. But let's do, so this one here, I am going to do ground espresso. So it is a brown. And let's ink that up. And then we'll make something with the prettiness of these. Okay. There is a line here, and I think I want it a little bit darker. There's a diagonal line here. Just swiping some of that extra. There's a diagonal line here. So I'm just putting a lot of ink because I really want this to stand out. And there you go. And then we have this. This stencil is actually very easy to ink up. Nothing moves. And this one here. So I am loading up my blending tool with lots of ink, just so I can get that nice dark brown. And then we'll do a reveal. There's one more right here. Okay, so I do have extra ink. I'm just going to swipe it back into. Okay, who is ready to see what this looks like? So stencil 1 and 2 was from Ayrshire, and then my last stencil I use is Orkney. I use stencil 2. So who is ready? Any thumbs up? Any hearts? Are you ready to see? I'm excited to see this. I think, ooh, it gives it a different look. It adds the diagonal. I think if I do it again, I might put this stencil the other way, just so I have a different pattern, because right now I have it lined up and it's going the same direction as my stencil 1, which is still nice. It's a nice plaid, but I think if we went the other way, we can get a little bit of contrast. So what I would do to go the other way is probably flip this. I know I'm ignoring the rules, but I think we flip it. So here, let's try something. Okay. This one here is the one I showed you earlier. Let's see what it looks like if I do the diagonals the other way. There's no wrong. It's all about trial, right? And to see, because I think if it went the other way, it would give it a very distinctive look. You know what? Maybe I should wipe it first. Let's do a quick wipe, because I'm scared this might smear on that prettiness. So let's give it a quick wipe, and let me turn the stencil over and see if it makes a difference. So just for time's sake, I'm going to use one that already has stencil 1, 2, and 3 from Ayrshire, but I think we can still give it a little bit of a different definition by going the opposite way. So this one, for some reason, I don't have registration marks, so I will have to eyeball this, which is not hard. There. I'm just putting my markings right to the edge of the plaid, and I can always cut it down. So, okay, who's ready to see this? So I did flip my stencil over so I can have my diagonal marks the other way. Absolutely, you could do diagonals on both ways. So the nice thing is about playing and seeing what works. So I'm going to use the brown again just so we can see the pattern. And let me whip this quickly. But I'm loving how you can mix the two together and create different plaids. So you can make multiple designs. Try not to touch the ink, actually. I'm going to use this to hold it down. And so just inking the diagonal lines. I love a good ink pad that's really inky. And make sure. Okay, who's ready for this reveal? So this one now, I've turned it the other way. Ooh, I like that one better. Not to say I don't like the other one, but having it in the opposite direction does make, I don't know, there's just something about it. It just makes it look different. So here's me flipping the stencil over. And this one here, I had the stencil go the same direction. But that is pretty cool how you can make different kinds of plaids by mixing it up in colors. So just to show you some other combinations, and then we will make something with this. I just have paper everywhere. Okay, Here's the one we did earlier with the squeezed lemonade, peacock feather, and I can't remember what it is. Prize ribbon. Some other combinations I liked were me and my purple. Here is Villainous Potion, Salty Ocean, Twisted Citron. I think with the Twisted Citron, even if I did it first, for some reason my Twisted Citron isn't bright like the packaging. Not sure why that is. It looks more like a yellowy green. Here is, this is the one I like, and I think if I do this again, I might do the third stencil with paste with gold. It's Antique Linen, Salvage Patina, and Vintage Photo. And then, of course, I had to do a purple one, so I did Shaded Lilac, Villainous Potion, and Black Soot to change it up. So lots of color choices. I did a few to show, but let's make a card today. So I don't know. I like them all. Let's start with this one. Let me cut it down. Am I good for time? Yeah. Is there any questions? How did you guys like the stencil? Isn't it pretty cool? So let's make something pretty because we did all that stenciling. And you can pick and choose where you want. The only thing is if you do an A2 size card, unfortunately, you can't do 2 of them. But of course, you can always use the extras for something else. So let me cut off this side first. I am going to leave no white. I'm going to do as close as possible.
So Darlene, while you're cutting, I'm just going to remind everyone that I think you said it was 7.5 or 7.25.
7.5 for the actual stencil part.
So it would work perfectly for larger size cards. It would work for layouts. It would work for mini albums and travel journals. I know we've got a few people kind of joining us late. So these are extra large stencils from Crafter's Companion that work beautifully on a whole variety of projects.
Yes. So people, our friends that love the 6x6 or the 6.5x5, this is perfect for it because of the sizing. I don't know which part of the plaid I want. So I did cut this down to 4 by 5.25, so I can have a little bit of white showing on my card front. So you can pick and choose parts of the plaid that you want to use. So the first card is going to be a simple one. Let me just grab a card base and find it. And you can keep it as simple as you want and then add just a sentiment on it. You can for sure mat this with a different color, like maybe a navy blue or a black. Another thing that we got from Crafter's Companion are little mini dies, and because we're doing Father's Day cards, or it could be a Father's Day birthday card, I'm using King of the Grill. I already die cut just a few pieces just to show you what you can do with a card like this. Where's my glue? It's a little barbecue set. We did get a little mini golf set, which is looks like these. So they're brand new to the store. Matt has put them online, so you will find all those goodies there. But I just die cut a few of these pieces just so I can make a nice card. And there's a little bit of a trim to put on here. So I did tone on tone color. And should have brought my tweezers because these are really small. And so that's the top of the barbecue, the bottom of the barbecue. Using some holographic paper. This is the stand. So 1, 2, 3, just a little bit. So I'll show you the set. Whoops, that's upside down. Whoopsies. This set comes with a whole bunch of stuff. It's a pretty big set for a small packaging like this, but it gives you the barbecue, the tongs, the flippers. It has an apron, a little mitt, and that's a little crown. So lots of goodies in this little set. Oh, not dried enough. And I'm just using the packaging because I just whipped this open. So that's the stand. I did cut just for little tongs. I did in 2 colors because I wanted the actual tong part to be in silver. So what I'm going to do, if I can find my scissors, is just cut the green part. Sherry, I'm using green, although it's not the right store color green, but it's green. So I'm just cutting the little bottom part, and then I'll glue the actual handle, the green on top of the handle. And that way I have just the silver showing. My hands are not being nice to me. They're shaking. Okay, let's see. So I'm fixing my little, look at these little tongs. They're so cute. Okay, and I think that's all I did. I wanted to do something quickly, decorate a card. So let me put that aside. I am going, actually I can't puff this up because the legs are really thin. So let's just glue this flat at the bottom. If I wanted it raised and the leg parts is really thin, I would do cut them out in white cardstock and then stack them. But for tonight, I'll just do this flat. I think I'll use this line as like a little anchor for my barbecue. And then we need the lid. I think the lid I'm going to pop just so there's a little bit of dimension. Oops, just over there. Looks like Pac-Man. And where should I put my tongs? Maybe I'll just put the tongs here. I think there is a little bar that you could put on the side and you can hang your tongs. That would be cute too. Or you could put the apron with the tongs inside, and there's little hot dogs or sausages in the set, which is really cute. Okay, I know that looks kind of funny because the tongs are just out of there. And let's do a quick sentiment. So I found my lawn fawn. I grabbed my Henry's Build a Sentiment. It's a spring set, but it does have Happy Father's Day. So I am going to use that. I should take a white cardstock so I can. Where's Father's? And Happy. And what I'll do is just because. So Crafter's Companion has these nesting dies. I'm using the hexagon. I'm going to die cut a piece of white. I just need to make sure that would fit my sentiment. Give me 2 seconds. Let me just run over and die cut a white cardstock. And that way we can put a nice sentiment here. Where's my acrylic block? So Happy Father's Day. Might have to fix that. Yep. In this set, there's also an exclamation mark. If I can find it, let's use that. My fingers are not working. I can't even line that up. Okay, it's too high. Okay, it's a little wonky, but you'll get it. I'm using my favorite Midnight Blue with Concord and Ninth for my sentiment. Oops, might be too inky. Let me just ink to the side. Yeah, the exclamation mark is too far. Because I'm on camera, I can't get it to line up properly. Okay, let's try this again. So inking. Thank goodness. And probably it's not straight, but it's okay. It's the love that we put in this. So there's Happy Father's Day. And what I'll do to just bring in some of the color, I think I'll use the, where is the leftover, no, I didn't use this color, the other color. I'm going just to ink the edges a little bit. I believe it was this one here. And I'm going to take my brush, just because it's so stark white and that plaid in the background. Just going to add some of that color. So I took the darkest color and I just using whatever's left over on my blending brush. Sorry, my blending tool. And we can pop that up right at the side here. Oh, there's my phone. You would think that I would remember where I put stuff. And, oops. So, almost there. I could probably gone a smaller hexagon, but that's okay. And you could for sure add gems if you want, or something else. I might add something from the barbecue set, maybe like the little mitt, and just hang it off here. But there you go. Quick and easy card using that plaid. Just before we go, let me just show you something else. Let's say you have all these leftovers. What do you do with it? I wouldn't throw it because everything's usable, right? So let me just do a quick card with what is left over. I'm going to probably just pick a little bit of this.
You could also keep that little scrap as your color swatch for your color combination.
Yes.
As long as you remember to write on the back what colors you actually used.
Yes, but that's actually a good idea. I might just keep that and use it as a swatch and put it with my stencil, so I know this one I might cut down. But that's a good idea, because then that way I'll remember what it looks like. And so I need to cut this down, but I'm just trying to figure out which part I like. And 5.5. And it's just using little bits. And if you don't want the full plaid on it, you can for sure use just a little tad of your leftover pieces. And I might mat that, or even just something like that, and just putting, I was going to add a banner up here, but I might just think I just like that. And you could just do a quick sentiment, like, let's see if I can do this quickly. Might not have enough space. I'm going to just put Happy Father's Day in a straight line and just stamp it right above that. And I think that's a card in itself right there. It's just lining these little pieces. But once you have it lined up, it's good just to do a few. Okay. It's not straight, so just pretend it is straight for tonight's purposes. But I can see my day is a little lopsided, but that's okay. Okay, let me just swipe my finger. And let's just ink that. Yeah, my day is so off, but that's okay. Just pretend you think it's straight. And I'll probably just put it in that corner and just letting it sit a little bit and lift. And there. Quick and easy Father's Day cards using the plaid stencils. Really love the versatility of the plaid and what you can do with it. So I'll create a layout and we'll post it so you guys can see how you could use this on a bigger format. But so much fun, so much possibilities using colors. And these are just, dark masculine colors. But if you do vibrant, you'll get, brighter colors, sunset colors, tons of things. So thank you so much for joining me. I hope you enjoyed that. Lots of fun.
Thank you, Darlene. Your enthusiasm is always very contagious. So
thank you.
I hope people go and grab those stencils before they're gone. And yeah, like you said, the possibilities are endless.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight. I know it's a beautiful evening out for some of us. I know Debbie was saying she had thunderstorms, so maybe not so much in other parts of the world, but Father's Day is around the corner, and hopefully you've got some ideas here. Don't forget to tune in tomorrow night for What's New at 7. We got a lot to show you.
Yeah.
And plus our last deal of the week for May, and all kinds of good news to share. So have a good evening, everyone. See you tomorrow on Wednesday, and enjoy the rest of your week.
Bye.